So we'll just wait a minute while everyone who wants to join us has a chance to click through and be present. Okay, people still trickling in, and it's only 11:01, so we'll give it another minute or two. Okay, our numbers seem to be settling. We've got 74 of us here, so welcome and thank you for joining us. It's great to be with you this morning. See, I gotta fix this computer the way I want it. Some of you will recognize where I am. I'm in the lounge at St. Paul's, and I want to say a special word of thanks to the Flower Guild, who has been providing flowers every Sunday, including these. They're very beautiful. And I hope that those Flower Guild volunteers who have taken on that work have not been bothered by the fact that because of our homes and the way we're set up, sometimes the flowers are more or less prominent in the screen. But we appreciate your work. We love having them. And this morning, special thanks to Lucy Bird, who arranged the flowers. So thank you to the Flower Guild. I want to say a few words about how this gathering is going to go. I want to give you just a few updates, things that you may already know, but a little bit of information about things that have been going on this summer at St. Paul's, a little bit of conversation about what's coming up this fall. And then we'll take some questions, have a little bit of time for question and answer. And then, and I hope you'll stay tuned, I want to share with you a video that we have that we've prepared related to the church school wing, the asbestos removal project, and talk a little bit about the building project for which that asbestos removal is preparation. But we have a video that I'm excited to show you, featuring some of our families, featuring Peyton Williams, featuring Betsy Poist and Iris Potter. So please stay tuned. So we'll have some conversation, and then we'll have some question and answer, and then we're going to go to the video. And during the video, we'll have an opportunity to promote everybody to a panelist, the way we often do during the postlude after morning prayer, so that you can see each other. I think we can keep you muted, but we're hoping everyone will stay on mute because we want to have the opportunity for some more question and answer after the video, which will be really difficult if there's a lot of noise. So if you would like to be seen, then you can respond to that invitation while the video is playing. If you don't want to be seen, just don't turn on the video, and that's fine. But please do not turn on your microphone until we're really finished, and then we can spend a minute saying hello. So that's the order we're going to go in. So just a few very general updates. The first is to say thank you to the entire parish, to members and friends. As you might guess, one of the big concerns, both among the staff and among the vestry, and probably among many of you, when this all began back in March, was about the short-term financial well-being of St. Paul's. We are very fortunate and should not overlook, not forget to be thankful for the fact that we have in great financial stability in the long term. because of the gifts of previous generations. But we, and this generation too, some of you out there as well. I don't want to exclude anyone who gives or has given. But the concern this spring was what will happen in the short term while we're not having in-person church services. And it is, it's just staggering to me the degree to which you all have maintained your commitment to giving. Our pledge income has surpassed the projections that we made in January. The plate income, of course, is down because we don't have people stopping by on Sunday, as we often do. One of the great blessings of this parish and the community that we're in and our location is that we have lots and lots and lots of visitors. We have not had visitors Sunday by Sunday making contributions in the plate. However, our members and our pledgers have followed through in a truly inspirational way, so that some of you have paid your pledges early, some of you have overpaid your pledges, some of you have made special gifts. And I don't say that because I think it's I don't say that as a way of saying, you know, oh, well, isn't it wonderful we have so much money? I say it because I think it's a great sign of spiritual health and maturity in this congregation, that the well-being of the parish is a priority for so many. So thank you for that, and thanks be to God for that spirit moving in our parish. So the question on everybody's mind, whether we ask it out loud or not, is when might we be coming back to church? And of course, the answer is that we don't know. We are going to stick with the plan we articulated at the very beginning, and the vestry has had some conversation about this and approved the basic principles, and it's in keeping with the bishop's guidelines and the bishop's encouragement that our primary Sunday worship service, which is the 10 o'clock service, will remain a virtual service really for the foreseeable future. And the primary reason for that is to honor the principle of inclusion, so that folks who are not able or do not feel comfortable coming to an in-person service will not be excluded from the parish-wide service. So 10 o'clock remains online for the time being. We will be eligible. If I'm boring you because you already know this, then I'm sorry, but I think there are probably some who haven't paid attention to the detail. We will be eligible to apply to the diocese for the bishop's approval for indoor worship at such time as the coronavirus caseload in the Thomas Jefferson Health District shows a sustained decline over a period of a couple of weeks. And so I have been obsessively tracking that number, and Parish Administrator John Reed has been obsessively tracking that number, and the diocese has been obsessively tracking those numbers for every health district in the Diocese of Virginia. And in our case, there's a lot of up and down day to day and week to week, but the trend has been somewhere between flat and creeping toward the worse for about 3 months now. So we have been hovering in the Thomas Jefferson Health District. We've been hovering in the neighborhood of 30 new cases every day for a couple of months now. And so at the moment, there's just no reason to think that, unfortunately, no reason to expect that we would see much improvement in that number in the near future. So 10 o'clock stays online. I want to talk a little bit about the things that are happening at St. Paul's. Most of you know that we have 2 tents out front. We've got one great big tent where we can hold outdoor worship services and we can set chairs 6 feet apart. We've used it a few times. It's been somewhat experimental. It has gone well. And then we've got a sort of welcome tent at the bottom of our steps. That's a check-in tent. And that's where we advise people that we're going to show them to their seats, and they need to stay in that seat until they're shown out, and they have to wear a mask. And if they don't have one, we can give them one. No one so far that I know of has shown up without one. but we do have a big supply in case we need them. We've got hand sanitizer there. And that's where we give people the sort of the welcome and also the protocol. So we've done that a few times now. We've had a couple of evening services with students, and we have had one wedding last Saturday. We had a wedding under that tent, and it was really quite nice. Of course, the variables, the unknowns related to outdoor worship will have to do with shortening days and cooler weather, but we're going to take that week by week. The vestry will meet Tuesday evening, and one of the things that I will be seeking input from the vestry on is the possibility of an in-person 8 a.m. Sunday service. So watch your email, watch your newsletter. There may be an electronic sign-up mechanism as soon as later this week. We have permission from the bishop because we submitted a big plan that included a whole bunch of outdoor worship possibilities to get approval. It doesn't mean we have to do all of them, but we have permission to begin 8 o'clock outdoor worship as soon as next Sunday if we choose to do it. So the vestry is going to be talking about that on Tuesday. The University Fellowship is managing just brilliantly with conversations on faith and life Wednesday evenings under the tent, limited to 15 in keeping with university policy, and the Sunday evening service. Youth group will be meeting prior to the Sunday evening service next Sunday, the 20th. As Peyton said in her fantastic children's homily this morning, she is away this week. As like most of us, all of her summer plans got thrown up in the air, and this was the only time she was going to be able to spend with her family for quite a long period of time. So I'm really pleased that she's able to do that. I hope she's having a great time in Colorado. But she will be back, and youth group will meet next Sunday before the 7:30 p.m. service, and the University Fellowship is meeting. I could stop there. I think John is going to manage question and answer. I'm going to stop there for a minute for questions and conversation. I'm sorry that it's not quite as simple as raising a hand. I wish I could see all of you and call on you, but we were concerned that would create too much technological confusion and noise interference. So John, do we have questions so far? And if not, you can ask a question by going to the Q&A function. If you don't see a little thing on the bottom of your screen that says Q&A, if you move your mouse down, move your cursor down, it should pop up to where you can see something that says Q&A, and you can put your question there. And I'm going to ask Parish Administrator John Reed to be the sort of moderator for that. So John, do we have questions?
At this point, we do not yet have any questions. So if people want to enter them in Q&A, I will pass them on as soon as they show up.
Okay, thank you. It's a little nerve-wracking to sit here and keep talking. If we were in the parish hall and I were sitting in front of you, I would know if you were eager to ask a question, and I would stop talking and call on you. But in this circumstance, we just have to wait to see if questions appear in the Q&A. And I will continue with a couple of other topics that I want to mention. One is to thank all of you for your participation, your enthusiastic and faithful participation in the conversations on faith and race that took place this summer. I had the pleasure of participating in several of those, and it was really heartwarming to see the number and variety of people who were eager to take time to participate in that, including some new parishioners. I've been asked that a few times, and I might have mentioned it a little while ago. I should have mentioned it when I was talking about stewardship and giving. The other thing that has continued in a way that I had not expected is newcomers. We continue to receive email and and signups for the newsletter list, etc., from people who are new to St. Paul's, and it's just wonderful to think that we can continue to share with prospective members and newcomers who we are and how they might get involved. So John says we have a bunch of questions now, so we're going to go to that.
So Will, I think the first most general question is, are there plans to do more of the spiritual communion services in the future? And if so, how regularly?
That is a question that I myself have, and I am really looking forward to hearing from the congregation about how well that worked. We weren't sure how it would go, and so it certainly is something like so much of what we're doing these days. It's a little bit experimental. We wanted to see how it would go. If there's a strong sense that it went well, we could certainly schedule it periodically. I'll also say that we have guidelines from the diocese, just very fresh guidelines about how we would be allowed to actually distribute communion at outdoor services. I haven't looked at them closely enough yet because they're so fresh to be able to tell you how comfortable or uncomfortable I personally would be with the protocols that are described in terms of the virus. But the question that you ask about whether we can do this kind of service more often is a very open question, one that I do not yet have an answer for, and I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you about how you thought it went.
So Will, if the Q&A is any indication, there seems to be quite a lot of positive reaction to that earlier this morning. Great. So the next area of interest appears to be about the 8 a.m. service potentially. Will the proposed service be by invitation only? Will there be limited attendance? Might some of the regular members who attend 8 a.m. but aren't really tuned into Zoom be invited, and along that line?
Yes. So my thinking is that my guess is that if and when we do have an in-person 8 a.m. service outdoors, that it would be likely to attract a congregation that looks a little bit different from our regular 8 a.m. We are limited to 50 in our outdoor space, and I would be delighted if more than 50 people wanted to come. I would also have to say I'd be a little surprised if we had more than 50 at 8 o'clock, but maybe I will be surprised. It will not be by invitation. It will be by reservation. So the details would need to be worked out. What we might do is simply ask people to let us know that you'd like to come, and if we get close to 50, then we would have to start replying and say, okay, you've got a rain check for next week. If that happened week after week after week, we could potentially add a service, because these would be brief services. So I think I've covered the people who are not generally on Zoom, including some of our regular 8 o'clockers. Certainly we would make an effort, once we have details, certainly we will make an effort to let the entire parish know about the possibility. And we are in touch primarily through Heather Warren with people who do not have access to email. So we have a way of letting everyone know. It may be that some of the folks, there is not surprisingly a lot of overlap between the folks who don't use computers and don't use email and folks who are quite elderly and might not want to come out to a public event. So, but we'd certainly let everyone know it would not be by invitation. It would be by reservation.
Thanks, Will. So we have a question from a parishioner who's got an infant. And since I have a new grandchild, I have the same type of question. And it is, if COVID's still a major issue in the winter/spring, do we have plans for how we might handle baptisms and confirmation? Or will this be delayed until large in-person services are possible?
I'm gonna take a risk and just go off the cuff here and say that I would like to figure out a way to offer baptism for those who are seeking baptism around All Saints Day, which is the 1st of November. I do not anticipate having public services in church by then, but you're asking that question helps me focus on that timeline, and I believe that we can find a way to have some baptisms around All Saints. One model that we might use, and I hope you all have seen this in the newsletter. Gwen Crichton will be ordained to the priesthood. Is that tomorrow?
It is tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning at St. Paul's Church in Richmond on Zoom. And there are a whole bunch of people being ordained, and they're going to be ordained one at a time with no more than 10 people in the church, but it's going to be on Zoom. And all of us and the whole diocese and the whole world are invited to participate. So we might use that as a kind of a model for how we could do baptisms. And for individuals or families seeking baptism, of course, it would be a choice whether to participate in that way or to delay until we could have a large in-person celebration.
Great. So there's someone inquiring about Michael Turner's health and how he is doing.
Thank you for asking about Michael. So Michael, our building and maintenance assistant, broke his hand while playing with one of his children, and he's had a cast on it. And I think the cast, last time I talked to him, which was a few days ago, the cast was about ready to come off. Do you know, John, if he got it?
He has 2 more weeks of the cast.
Okay, so he feels generally well. He has taken some vacation time because he's not able to do all the things he would normally do with his hand in a cast. But I think the pain is largely in the past, and now he's into the phase of just inconvenience. So thank you so much for asking about Michael. He is healing well and should be 100% within the next couple of weeks.
So Will, there's a question here that I will both ask the question and answer. How about that?
I like that.
The question is, the 12 step groups who normally meet in the lounge are eager to know if there will be any possibility of resuming indoor meetings, perhaps in the parish hall or the sanctuary, so that a 20-person meeting could really spread out. So at this point in time, we have not moved to phase 2 in the diocesan plan. And as a result, we would not be permitted by the diocese to host any meetings inside the church at this point. And given the way the numbers look, I don't anticipate that happening anytime in the near future. It's not a decision that we're making. It's really a decision the diocese has made, and it frankly has made our life much easier not having to judge each of these requests on an individual basis. But at the current time, we would not be permitted to have a meeting inside the church of any type.
Thanks.
I'm scrolling through. There's a question about when will the altar guild services be needed? Are there cases for the outside worship where altar guild activity would be useful?
That's an excellent question. We so far, well, as I said, we're just barely getting into this. I mean, we've had 2 Sunday evening services, we've had 1 wedding, and we have managed most of the setup for the outdoor services involves things like extension cords and speakers and microphones rather than patens and chalices. And in fact, we haven't had a table at all outdoors. I think if we do move in the direction of a regular spiritual communion, or even an in-person communion outdoors, then we would certainly need some help from the Altar Guild. Nothing concrete at the moment. We're feeling our way forward on that, but we miss you. I was in the sacristy this morning for the first time in a long time, and missing the Altar Guild. So thank you for asking.
So Will, there is someone who would like for us to note that the St. Paul's Bible study is resuming on Zoom starting this Thursday morning.
Great.
If you need a link, please be in touch with the office and we'll be glad to provide that. This will be their first meeting since March.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to the leaders of that Bible study, especially Jody Lehendro. It has been it's a long-standing group. It's been, the size has varied, and I wonder if moving onto a virtual format might grow it. But I can tell you, if you're curious about a Bible study group, I can tell you that it's an easy group to drop into. It's not clubby, and it's lovely people. So if you're curious, then I hope you will email the office and join in early Thursday mornings.
Okay, and this is a good transition question for you, Will. Before the pandemic, we had begun to discuss building and renovation plans. Where does that planning and possible implementation stand?
Okay, so that is a perfect transition. Thank you, and thank you, John, for the setting that up for me. We are a little behind where we projected that we would be when you may recall that at the annual meeting, we were sort of full steam ahead. The overall plan has not essentially changed. It has been slowed down a little bit, but where we are now is that we have one committee to explore architecture and engineering firms, to work with the master plan that came out of our listening process, and was sort of collated and assembled by Jody Lehendro, who has put just a huge amount of invaluable expertise, but also a huge amount of hours into doing this for us. So when you see Jody, please thank him. And when you don't see him, please thank God for him. But so we've got a committee to work on that. And that committee consists of Jody and newly appointed, breaking news, Rachel Lloyd, also Beth Meyer, Christy Thomas, and Pat Punch. So that group is working to research and identify architecture and engineering firms that we might engage for our project. Simultaneously, we have a committee exploring the possibility of a capital campaign, exploring and researching the timing of such a campaign, and whom we might engage as a consultant for that campaign. There are a number of firms, and some inside the church, some outside the church, who could be helpful. And so that group is going to be undertaking that work. And that includes Steve Bevis, Casey Williams, Erica Vixelio, Jim Galloway, and somebody else who's probably listening and can't believe that I can't think of their name. I should have had this list in front of me. John, can you help me out?
I wasn't paying enough attention to who you named, but did you have Casey Williams?
Yeah. Peter Buchanan. Thank you, Steve. Steve Bevis just helped me out. Peter Buchanan. So that's Steve, Peter, Casey, Erica, and now I lost one that I remembered a minute ago. So I'm going to stop trying to list names and go back to answering the question. Jim Galloway. The question was, where are we? So those two groups are just beginning their work. They met together a couple of weeks ago so that we're off on the same foot, moving the same direction. And now they are beginning the work of establishing meeting schedules and workflow individually, one for the building, one for the possibility of the capital campaign. Meanwhile, the vestry, in the summer, over the course of 2 meetings, the vestry had some really in-depth conversation and prayerful consideration, I will say, not just to throw in churchy language, but because I think it's true, of what to do about the church school building. And in the midst of the pandemic, the question was, do we or do we not proceed with asbestos removal? And the reason that was a weighty question is that it's not because we didn't know whether or not it needed to be done. Regardless of what was going to happen with that building, the asbestos would have to come out of it. It could neither be renovated nor demolished until this asbestos project was completed. So we've been imagining all along, and the vestry has bought into this plan, and the listening process, I think, affirms this plan, that the building should be replaced. And once you decide that the building should be replaced, then if you begin the process of asbestos removal, you've essentially abandoned the building, because there will be bare concrete floors. There will be essentially no ceilings throughout most of the building. There will still be some usable space on the first floor where the nursery is. But late in the spring and early in the summer, the vestry undertook this question of, should we move forward with this? And I was really inspired by the optimism and the courage of the vestry in deciding that, yes, we know we want to do this, and we know that economic times are uncertain, but we know that we are called to move forward at whatever pace is decided by the capital campaign group and the vestry. But we know that we want to move forward with a new and better building, not seeking to renovate the old one. So the vestry did approve the asbestos removal, which is now just beginning. The building is mostly sealed off in preparation for that work. The fortunate part of the timing is that we don't need Sunday school classrooms at the moment. The unfortunate part of the timing is that I had imagined all along for many months that we would have an opportunity for people to gather, to walk through the building for prayers of Thanksgiving and prayers of farewell for the church school building, which we don't anticipate occupying again. We have not been able to do that. And so instead of doing that, what we have is this video, which is essentially a video of prayers of deconsecration of the building. So we'll play that. As the video is playing, you'll have the opportunity to turn your video on so that we can see each other when the video is over. And then we're going to try to continue with a little bit of Q&A after the video. And for that to work, we're going to need everybody to stay muted and continue to use the Q&A function to do that. So here is our church school wing video.
Hi, St. Paul's. I'm coming to you today from our beloved Sunday school wing, where we have spent the past 2 weeks packing up all of our Sunday school supplies and our godly play materials to prepare for the work which will begin this coming week, in which the floors and the ceilings will be taken out of the building so that the building will be ready to be taken down when the time comes. While we are excited for a new space with rooms dedicated to all ages and with even more space dedicated to children and youth, we recognize the sadness and the difficulty of letting go of this space, which has held the life of our children's and youth ministries for so long. Because we can't be together in person to celebrate, to bless the space, and to give thanksgiving for it, we have created this video to do just that.
Hello, Betsy Poist here, and along with many others, I spent a lot of time in the church school wing. In 1985, the then rector of St. Paul's said to me, "Please, will you direct the church school just for 1 year?" And I said, okay. And it was 15 years later when I finally stepped aside, leaving the church school under Iris's excellent leadership. Those extra 14 years were entirely my own doing and a very, very real pleasure. It was a large team of faithful and talented teachers and splendid, lively children and their families that kept me there. More than once in their midst and in this space, I truly experienced a sense of transcendent joy and also a sense that we might well be doing just what we were meant to be doing. It is with great gratitude that I express my thankfulness for this space.
I am so grateful for the many wonderful years of joy, laughter, song, and prayer that this space fostered for so long. And also for the loving service of so many parents, grandparents, and older siblings who gave of their time, talents, and hard work to instruct and inspire the children of our St. Paul's family over many decades. These rooms welcomed us to meet, grow, and gather together in God's holy, loving presence and meet Jesus in the world. In saying goodbye to these walls, I remember the echoes of that cinder block din as the children arrived on Sunday mornings, the excited hustle and bustle of pageant rehearsals, and the timeless gallery of the children's artwork on the walls.
Hi, this is Pam Evans, and I was lucky enough to spend the last 2 decades of my life in the education wing at St. Paul's. As a teacher at Chancellor Street, I got to meet so many families and children, and we loved it there. A lot of church families. We particularly enjoyed the groundhog, the chipmunks, and the little bunny that used to come into the garden that the children planted on that wonderful playground. We had a wonderful 48-year partnership, and we can't thank you enough.
Saying farewell to the church school wing means that we also honor the nursery. Beth, Vicky, Glynis, Katie, Kelly, Edie, with the help of Ruby for the past 30 years, and many others for much shorter periods of time, made the nursery a safe and loving place for hundreds of our youngest parishioners every Sunday throughout the year, while providing many families their first exposure to St. Paul's.
Although I have only been with you all for a little over a year, I feel the sanctity of this building deep in my bones. I remember walking in to this hallway my first day at St. Paul's and just being amazed when I saw the mural which surrounds me right now. You can feel the life of this building just in this mural. And then especially if you enter this building on Sunday mornings, when you hear the laughs of children as they go into their Sunday school rooms, and when you see the dedication of our godly play teachers and Sunday school leaders. I am so thankful for the ways in which this parish demonstrates its commitment to the lives of our children and youth, and for the relationships that they have built in this space. We give thanks, we grieve, we celebrate, and we look ahead. Let us pray. We who are gathered here know that this building, which has been consecrated and set apart for the ministry of God's holy word and sacraments, will no longer be used in this way, but will be taken down. To so many of us, this building has been hallowed by cherished memories, and we know that some will suffer a sense of loss. We pray that each of us would be comforted by the knowledge that the presence of God is not tied to any place or building. How wonderful you are, O gracious God, in all your dealings with your people. We praise you now and we give you thanks because you have visited this place and you have hallowed it by your presence. Stay among us, we pray, to bind us together in your love and peace. May we serve you and others in your name. Through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.
As I'm standing here outside the church school wing, I have a question for the children and the youth of St. Paul's, and I'll give you a minute to think about it. How long do you think this building has been standing here? When do you think it was built? The answer is that this building is 60 years old. It was built 60 years ago. Now, 60 years is 60 years means that we have members at St. Paul's who can remember perfectly well before this building was built. We have members at St. Paul's who remember what this space looked like when the church school wing didn't exist. We have members at St. Paul's who remember how exciting it must have been when it got designed and built. But not a lot of our members can remember those things. For most of us, it's hard to imagine St. Paul's without the church school wing standing here. And because we can't imagine it, we forget sometimes to ask the question of how this building got here. The reason that the church school wing is here is because in the 1950s, the people of St. Paul's heard God calling them to do things that they felt they could not do well in the facilities that they had. And so they stepped out in faith and they built this building. They couldn't have known for sure what would happen here. They couldn't have known for sure that it would work. But they prayed that God would use their faith and the blessings of this space to do God's work in the lives of children and youth and families for generations. And we know 60 years later that those prayers have been answered abundantly. The number of children and youth, families, and Sunday school teachers who have sung together, prayed together, taken care of one another, and had their faith challenged and nurtured in this space is more than any of us could name or count. Only God knows who they all are. That's an occasion for prayers of thanksgiving from us, but it's also the answer to the prayers of the people who built this building. Their prayers were answered. Now it's our turn. Today, once again, people at St. Paul's have heard God calling us to do things that we don't think we can do well in the spaces that we have. And so as we prepare to say goodbye to this building, we're not ending the ministries that have taken place across these 60 years. We are continuing in the ministry of the people who built this building to begin with. We pray and trust that as their prayers were answered, so will ours be. Loving God, in your great goodness, you once accepted to your honor and glory this building. Receive our praise and thanksgiving for the blessings, help, and comfort which you have bestowed abundantly upon your people in this place. Continue, we pray, your many mercies in your church, and especially here at St. Paul's, that we may be conscious at all times and through all kinds of changes of your unchanging love. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Thanks, John. Thank you to all of the stars of the video. Thank you especially to Betsy and Iris for your participation. Do we have, are there questions related to the future of the church school building?
None that I've gotten yet.
Okay. Well, I think it's okay at this point to take a minute for us all to wipe our eyes while we wait for any further conversation. Are there other questions that we should be addressing while we wait to see if those questions come in?
Just when is the asbestos removal approximately going to end, and is demolition going to anticipate it following soon after that?
That's a two-part question, so I can answer the second part. John can answer the first part. When do we think the asbestos removal will be complete?
Sure. It's a more complicated answer than one might think. We were able to get a significantly better price from the contractor if we were willing to let our schedule be flexible. That is, let them come into work, and then if they had another job, stop and go away. And at this point, they've been doing some of that. We don't anticipate needing that space anytime in the short run. So it's working out quite well for us. It's delaying the process a little longer than we might hope, but other than just being kind of generally annoying, it's not a real problem. We have completed the asbestos removal in the office wing portion, and it's about to be put back together sometime in the next week or two. But at this point in the church school wing, really all they've done is seal up everything, put up the monitoring equipment they need to have, and I expect sometime in the next week for them to actually be back to start working on it again.
We're on mute, yes.
Thanks, John. So, yeah, if you think about it, it makes sense that if you're an asbestos removal contractor, your business is balanced between emergency and non-emergency jobs. So we were able to get that. What John described is that this contractor is free to be called off to an emergency and then come back to us because we're not an emergency, and we save a lot of money by operating that way. We have no time frame yet for demolition and construction. That will depend on the findings and recommendations of the building committee and the capital campaign committee as to how quickly we want to move forward. There will be permitting involved and that kind of thing. In the medium term, in the in-between, we may get to a point where we are able to have church and have people here and be able to use the nursery space again, because that space had already had the asbestos removed, I believe at the expense of Chancellor Street Preschool some years ago. And so that portion of the building would be usable if we were to need it, which of course right now we do not. But time frame for demolition and construction is still uncertain. John, is there another question?
I am not seeing any more questions on this topic, Will.
Okay.
We have a kind of hanger-on question from before about some of the groups using our outside space, but particularly the 12-step groups, and whether we are requiring them to
I can answer that.
Proper safety protocols or not.
Okay, I can answer that. We have been very conscientious about not hosting or inviting outside groups to use our outdoor space. So if 12-step groups or anybody else is using our outdoor space, they are doing so in the same way that anybody on any day, pandemic or not, might walk by and decide to sit on our bench and have lunch or stop and think and pray or whatever. So we have never been in the business of chasing people off of our property. We've got lovely property, benches, places to sit. But we are very deliberately not scheduling or hosting things like 12-step meetings precisely for the reason that this question kind of points to, which is that we just cannot be in a position of taking responsibility for their protocols. So if people gather on our space, I hope that they use good sense and take good precautions, but we're in the same, we have never policed people coming and sitting and talking. So that's still where we are. We're not maintaining a schedule of those meetings in any way, in the way that we used to allow groups to reserve a room. They're just gathering. I think if groups are gathering on our property, they're doing so out of convenience and or habit, and happy for them to do that. I hope they're taking precautions and we're not policing that. Anything else?
So, Will, there are some questions about, do we have plans to take photos of the murals in the church school wing? Yes,
it will all be well documented. If there are not further questions or conversation, I think we could move to allowing people to turn on their mics and say hello for a minute. It's 11:52, and I think we normally, if this were a real life forum, we would say that we're here till noon. So thank you all so much for your participation, for your attendance. I am interested in everybody's thoughts about the service this morning, which was, as I said, new and different and experimental. And please do keep your eye out for information about the possibility of an 8 o'clock service outdoors. Thank you. God bless you all.
The service was lovely. Well, thank you very much. And I thought the video of the church school was precious, just precious. Well done.
Good morning. I hope everybody's doing well. I thought the service was gorgeous, and I thought the video was very interesting.
Thanks, Rhonda. I'm glad you could be here with us.
Congratulations, Matthew and Kelsey. And the loafers.
Yeah. Maybe George and Ann, maybe you can bring a picture to Zoom next Sunday.
Congratulations, Matthew, on your son.
So the real question is, how many new voters has the baby registered?
Oh, getting right to the heart of the matter. Yeah, I think he's going to be the face of a postcard writing campaign.
Yeah. Thanks for that marvelous video. That was really a splendid tribute to all the work of the people who organized the church school, and it was a wonderful experience for all of us.
I spotted you in there, Ann. I hope you saw yourself.
I did, yeah. I wasn't really saying that was great, although I didn't mind it, but
I thought it was great.
Oh, it was wonderful little kids, and I particularly remember Betsy and Iris as the leaders, and they gave us so much. It's really wonderful.
And John, I think you are the unsung hero here for keeping all the staff and clergy going. So thank you so much.
Not to mention being video editor in chief. So thank you for that, John. You did a fantastic job with that.
Thank you.
So Rich, John makes a bad MC for these sort of things, you know? Maybe we should get...
Who is that?
If I don't wonder who's talking, see who's got a light around their picture, like me right now.
Yeah. Jonathan, good to see you.
Likewise, thank you.
John, it's nice to see you.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Okay. Again, I'll just say thank you all. Wonderful to see your faces. Thank you for your participation. Thank you all for all you do at St. Paul's, and see you soon. God bless you. Happy Sunday.
God bless you.
Bye, everybody.
Bless you.
Bless you. Bye-bye. Bless you.
Okay.
Mhm.